Anthony, get this
Who'd have thought we'd have walked around with bags full of them?
Oh, it's ridiculous.
All right. We are going to go ahead and get started. We have two items
So much
on
better.
this meeting's agenda. The first is a report on the AMI assessment results, and I will turn it over to you.
Okay. I'm Chris Mattingly, Utilities Director, and thank you for having us tonight. As you know, Utilities is wanting to bring forth the water rate increase eventually. And two big ticket items on the rate increase will be AMI, which is Advanced Meter Infrastructure, and the Groundwater Disinfection Project. So tonight, we asked eSource to come bring the latest business case of how an AMI installation in Norman is coming along. We asked Nicole and Todd to come and present their findings thus far. And Nathan is our project engineer for this project, and so I'll let him take it from here.
Okay, well, thank you, Chris. Yeah, so we were last year in June when we did our kickoff. eSource has done a lot of good work. And I think we're at a point now where you guys can see some of the results and understand where we're at and how we want to move forward. So with that, I'll turn it over to you, Nicole.
Wonderful. Thank you, Nathan. And good evening, everyone. My name is Nicole Pennington, and I am your project manager for the AMI assessments. So I'll jump into our agenda and the findings in just a moment, but I did want to allow Todd Barlow to introduce himself as well as our project sponsor. And Todd, if there was anything else that you wanted to add to open us up.
Just very briefly, it's been really great cooperation with staff for the last 3 or 4 months. I think you'll see some of the results of that. We've got, I think, a positive business case that we want to share with you. And really just very pleased with the engagement of everyone. So it's been a good experience for us so far. Hoping you can see some of the work, and Nicole will guide you through. And then we'll both be around for a while for any sort of Q&A that you guys might have. So thank you for having us.
Thank you. Very much so. All right, so diving right into our agenda, we will revisit the expectations for the assessment, which have all been met. Then we'll go ahead and discuss the evaluation that we had on the current state of operations for Norman's water utility. Afterwards, we'll go into goals and key messages that were developed through a series of workshops and engagement with your team here. Then diving into the business case, we'll look at the cost-benefit analysis. Afterwards, high-level draft implementation schedule, next steps, and then time for questions. The purpose overall was to, one, define the AMI project goals and objectives specific to the city of Norman. And this is so important to do this work up front so that we really build that sound foundation based on the merits of the technology that staff see across the board, whether they're in billing, customer service, engineering, line maintenance, etc. We created a business case. We assessed the disciplines and technology across the organization to identify where gaps existed and to determine readiness to adopt AMI technology. We also, of course, developed that high-level roadmap and implementation strategy. We built a stakeholder engagement vision, and this was an early activity, I think one that was very much warranted, especially given the amount of engagement that you have with your stakeholders, ratepayers, and citizens. And then what we're doing here today is presenting the findings and recommendations to ultimately ensure a thorough and due diligent effort. So jumping right into current state observations and gaps. As noted, your staff, they are engaged and well qualified to adopt AMI technology. We saw a lot of enthusiasm about this venture. The organization is run very lean, so certainly some benefits of moving to AMI where you can automate a lot of manual processes, streamline your business operations. And there will be a transition with new roles. This is a gap across every utility, is that you have a way of doing business right now. With this new technology, roles and responsibilities will need to shift, and that would need to be accounted for. Then another key area here is the technology. You are well positioned for a billing system integration, moving towards AUS. All major AMI platforms have integrated with AUS, so outstanding work there. And then a continued prioritization on security. That was a theme that we heard throughout, a very smart, sophisticated theme. And we did touch a little bit too, especially in the report, which was handed over last week on encryption and all sorts of best practices that the AMI vendors use for privacy and security. And then lastly here on funding, how is it that we would fund this program? As mentioned as well, the upcoming rate increase proposal, which should come forth in, I believe it is April for citizens to vote on. And then we have the Department of Interior Water Smart grants. In this grant, the funding ceiling has been upped, so it is now $2 million, and your project is eligible for that. So we are beginning that application process, actually quite far into that application process, and we'll have all of that teed up for the end of the end of October, so that you can submit prior to the November 3rd due date. Next up, we have the results of Insight. Insight is our web-based analysis and assessment tool. We asked staff to participate anonymously via surveys July into August, and you can see a number of top scoring areas here. Again, just focus on community and stakeholder engagement, customer satisfaction, environmental responsibility. We had a lot of sustainability outcomes as well as part of the evaluation here. I'll direct your attention over to the lowest scoring areas. The lowest scoring area was meter reading. So directly and positively impacted by this technology, as are all of these various areas, including revenue assurance. But that one really struck us, and that's not always the case that's the lowest scoring area. And I think, again, a testament to where the technology is right now, and then, you know, the enhancements that would be available to you if you move forward with an upgrade. So next up on goals and key messages, we had three primary goal areas. One, enhancements to customer experience. So we talked a lot about how this would be a tool where customers could engage more proactively with the utility, whereby we could deliver alerts for leaks, high usage, things like that would really help your customers. It would also allow staff here to increase responsiveness. If we have more data and these toolkits, we'll be able to also reach out to customers if there is a service disruption of some sort before they have to pick up the phone and call us. Another key area was operational efficiency, reducing manual processes, really modernizing, digitizing, automating a number of different things. This will reduce estimated bills. It also will allow you to continuously improve over time with the network. So we would recommend a flexible and scalable network. We'll talk about the technology, some sensors that you can put on right off the bat, but additionally in the future you could look to have, whether it's sewer monitoring or other technologies on this network. It really allows you the opportunity to build that into the future. And then last but certainly not least is environmental sustainability. By way of reducing our truck rolls, we of course reduce greenhouse gases there. We're chasing down leaks throughout our distribution system, and our customers are also identifying leaks. So that means less water waste, which also means less energy for pumping. So lots of, again, great environmental benefits as part of this program. Diving into our business case, we looked at 3 different scenarios here. One is your basic, I'm going to call it bare bones AMI, moderate, and then through the extended, kind of your Cadillac version, if you will. I'm going to focus in on the moderate AMI, which is what we are recommending. It includes a full replacement of all of your meters. We would have some remote disconnect meters, some pressure monitoring and acoustic leak devices installed as well. Again, using the same network so that you can carry that information over to your utility offices. The software, we would have 3 different software applications: your advanced metering infrastructure software, meter data management, which is essentially a data analytics platform, and then a customer portal. So looking at the moderate AMI value, the one in the middle here, this is the one that's recommended. It has a favorable ROI and a payback period of 15 years. And I want to emphasize that 15-year, that is the full replacement warranty period that is commonplace for the AMI vendors to offer. So you are right on that margin there. We also do have a net zero staffing included in the model. So what that means is we are not adding staff, we are not removing staff. The expectation here, and I very much applaud the expectation, is that we will transition staff to roles so that they continue to be successful within the Norman Water Utilities operations. As far as our implementation schedule goes, we are at the tail end of the assessment here, completing that. We have the vote approval as well coming forward. Then we'll move into acquiring the technology. That will take approximately 9 months altogether to accomplish that, going through contracting, solicitation, etc. Following that, we would go into the deployment period, and we're looking at a 2-year deployment period here. The first year includes planning and what we coin an initial deployment area. So we do really want to start slow so that we can take the time to integrate, to test, to redesign our business processes, make sure that our messaging and the stakeholder engagement work is clear and concise before we move into the following year, which would be the full deployment period, where you have a mass exchange of meters. So doing that work slow and upfront, it has many, many merits. One of them also being that larger capital outlay does not come until year 2, so the vendors are very much on the hook to provide you training and testing support throughout that time. Next steps. So we are looking for feedback from City Council as well as Norman staff. Again, we delivered the report to them, but they are reviewing that, and we're open to any and all feedback. We have the rate increase vote in the springtime. The Water Smart grant application due November 3rd. We certainly want to submit it a little bit ahead of time. And this is a great funding opportunity. We've been really successful with these grant applications, and we think that you have a very favorable grant. We do suggest that the project timelines coincide with the grant start date. That bodes the best for you. So that being said, the next step here is beginning to prepare for that next phase, where we can draft the request for proposal and then subsequently go into the evaluation and selection and then contract negotiations. And also preparing for this next phase, defining what your internal resource requirements are, having your project management team and staff available to help define the technical requirements, procurement requirements, and everything that would need to go into that bid package. And with that, I'll go ahead and open it up for questions.
Councilor Peacock.
A few slides back, you had the extended AMI, basically saying there was no payback period optional within the lifespan. Could you speak to that a little bit?
Absolutely. So you can see as well the cost for the extended AMI value. We're putting quite a number of sensors on there that are above and beyond the moderate value. So, and it also had remote disconnect meters for
That's
all
probably the
residential
largest.
meters.
I think the remote disconnect in that last one is probably what's driving that capital
The
cost.
most.
And it's really that delta between the 15 and the 26 that makes it go negative. So, what a lot of utilities are doing is again, finding that sort of part. We do have some, and I will be clear that we do have a number of utilities that are moving that way towards 100% disconnect to have, stability of service across the entire service territory. But it comes at a very big price, and so most people are selectively deploying that, and that's what we tried to kind of strike the right balance in option 2.
No, that makes sense. So I guess in that regard, did you guys factor in man hours in terms of lifespan? Because conceivably there's going to be a lot less labor involved with people having to go out and turn off meters and turn them back on manually. So just...
Councilmember Peacock, in certain applications, as they describe, maybe limited deployment of that technology. If you've got meters that are just challenging to physically get to, you might employ that technology just because it takes a lot longer than your average 10-minute on or 10-minute off. I think a hybrid approach could give us solutions, and I'm sure our meter readers could help identify those that are really a challenge on a regular basis.
That's what I was after, so I appreciate that.
Exactly, and just to add to that as well, I have another utility in North Carolina where they have a college population as well. In those accounts that they are frequently turning on and off, they found that within a few truck rolls, it pays for itself, that technology.
That's kind of what it seems like, so I appreciate it.
Yeah, great question.
And maybe just to layer on one other thing with that, as we move into subsequent phases where we actually do detail requirements for what we're procuring, we will drill into those sorts of things. So if you have a really, high population of multi-tenant, that number may move up or down a little bit depending, and we'll certainly consult with staff to figure out where that optimal spot is. And we do see prices coming down for those. It's just in general, that $10 million at your labor rate and what you're paying meter reading staff, it just takes, you could just read a lot of meters for the $10 million difference is what it kind of comes down to. Sure.
Councilman Berlin.
This is, in all honesty, a question I've had a lot when this is coming up. How do you keep the public from having the, looking into it as like government overreach, big brother technology, stuff like that? How do you sell it to the public like that? Because there's plenty of people that don't want more intrusive where they're sending signals from my house, and that's in all serious that I've had this question quite a few times.
Councilman Berlin, one of those answers, it can be in the public education and outreach on the install to be able to show the public how much information they can actually get from their own meter, to recognize if they see the bill jump, they can go back and look at their consumption and realize, oh yeah, I remember we had that big party and all the kids were playing in sprinklers for 4 hours, when I can see it in my customer portal. So I think that's one approach that the city could take, to say, customers, we want to be so incredibly transparent with you. You'll get to see, your meter consumption, and if your bill's high and you recognize, I've got water consumption at 3 o'clock in the morning, and my sprinklers weren't on and nobody was in the shower, I've got a leak. And hopefully we can help customers solve problems with knowledge that they never had before. So that's one approach, and I'd love to hear what our consultants have seen in other applications as well.
And I point to really two different areas, and it's a very thoughtful concerns that we heard from staff as well. So clearly there's been a lot of education and research and a lot leading up to even this point. But on the one hand, all of the information that is submitted over that AMI network that's wirelessly delivered, it is not personally identifiable information. So I do want to make that very clear, is that we're not sending names, addresses, payment information. None of that information is sent over the network. It's an encrypted data packet that has a meter identifier and then that usage information along with perhaps some alerts. So there's that one component to it. And then the other piece of it is, the way you're reading today, you're getting meter reading information, albeit every month. Now you're going to have that information more frequently, but the meter cannot tell you how that water is being utilized. It can tell you the amount, but it can't say that was a toilet or that was a this. So there's, that's a lot of what we try to communicate as well when people believe or are concerned about an overreach. We can tell how much you're using, and we have a right to that. But we can't tell what you're using it for, and we're certainly not going to pry.
Okay, thank you.
So I've got a tough question. With our goals of improving the customer experience and operational efficiency and helping us as a community reach our goals for environmental sustainability, what should happen if this water rate increase does not pass?
Would you like to take that, Todd?
Yeah, I mean, there's a number of methodologies in terms of financial, and I don't know what the constraints are here specifically, but I think our view is that long term, these meters have to be changed out to be reliably and accurately, and you probably had a history of programs here for meter change. So I think if it doesn't pass, I think we would start looking at just drilling deeper into the cost here. I mean, there's some people that are funding projects, partially funding projects from operating budgets or cash surpluses. We could look at staging, the project. There's certainly some other, and again, I don't know the total, debt encumbrance rules here, but there's some privatization type, private financing options that are on the table. So if it becomes a problem, I would say that we would just put our full options out on the table that we've seen other utilities work through, and just roll up our sleeves and work with you guys to find, some sort of solution. I think long-term, you're gonna have to replace the meters. It's just a question of do you
And
automate.
staff really sees the value of this, and we see other communities using it, and we feel like we're actually a little behind. I mean, Broken Arrow's using it, Stillwater's using it, Edmond's using it. Everyone else is going to this. Durant's using it. They got the smart grant. We just saw a YouTube video on them. So we see the need in the future. We just got to keep going to that to be more efficient in our reads and doing better. With our,
Agreed.
I even had some voters last time to say, I passed your water rate last time in 2015. But until you guys start doing a better job on all the lost water you're doing on not reading your meters, and I have rental units that I know those tenants, their meters weren't read, and we went in there and used water, and then you adjusted the bill, and they said, until you get that a little tighter, I really don't want to support you on future water rate increases until you tighten up and are doing better with the steward of your water you're using now. And I took that to heart. I mean, I think we can improve on that. So.
Okay, Councilmember Holman.
Yeah. Just to be clear too, for convenience as a selling point to residents is, one of the issues now is if your water were to get turned off on Friday afternoon, you might have to wait till Monday. So does this fix that ability? We're able to turn it right back on? Or?
Yeah, and I'd say there's two different ways that can be handled, and it's going to go to your future processes and policies as well. But if you had that remote connect disconnect meter, as soon as payment was made, it could be automatically turned back on. Or even if that was something that somebody had to do remotely, right? We're not waiting for somebody to get into a truck and go out there, so it can be done
Seems to be the
effectively
case
right away.
with all
That-
the other, with
that was
gas and electricity, is it
Yep.
can be turned back on within
Yep.
30 minutes.
The expensive valves that they were talking about, if we put that on their house, absolutely, we can do it. But we're probably going to try to choose and pick where we put those. So if there are people that maybe are repeat that need them turned on and off, we'll know that and put them in smart places, so we can utilize them.
Was
Not
it-
just put them everywhere at everyone's house where you don't use them.
Councilmember Holman, there was a part of this technology, and you'll have to tell me which rate case it falls in, but, the manual system, it's either all the way on or all the way off, and we've seen technologies that will allow water to move through the system so you can drink.
Yeah.
You won't be able to wash your car or, run a lot of laundry or take a long hot bath, but you got water to live on while we're working out whatever the issue was on the
Yeah,
account, so
that would be
definitely
nice.
smarter.
That's right. With the remote connect disconnect technology, you can have what's called a trickle feature, so it'll be enough to get a glass of water, but not enough to run your laundry and take a shower simultaneously.
It
and
could
do
also
all
help
those
prevent
things.
pipes busting. And, if we have a freeze or something, it happens occasionally here in Norman. Councilmember Foreman.
My question was the trickle thing that you just said. I thought last time we kind of talked about it, like if someone's going to get cut off, but we don't want them to be without, they could still get water for cooking and stuff. So that would be a really important feature for me.
Any other questions? Councilmember Hall.
Yeah, I was just curious about the timeline for the grant funding. So the grant proposal is due in November, but then what is the timeline? When would you expect? When would we expect to know if we've been awarded that grant?
Sure. So we would know in the springtime as well.
Okay.
And coincidentally, I believe right around the same time that the rate increase would go for a vote. So we would know along that timeline. And then the grant start period, they haven't given us a firm date, but based on prior experience working with them, we're thinking that would be around November or December that project period would start.
Of 22.
Correct.
Okay.
2022.
Okay. And then the other piece of it is just how important the education piece is going to be to energize our community to understand what we're trying to accomplish and to basically pull out all the stops to be able to address all of the questions that may come up and help people understand why we feel like this is an important step forward.
Completely appreciate that.
Councilmember Schuler.
Yeah, so we're talking about this, this remote access feature and talking about being able to do trickle. Just so I'm clear, and maybe so the public is clear on what our expectations are, because we're saying that's a great feature and we really would like that. But what we're proposing is not that every single meter gets that, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And so what kind of education are we going to do within the community to tell them, like, you're not getting this feature and why? Like, why are we making those selections for, you know, different areas or criteria? And am I correct in saying that on that one slide where we're talking about those different structures, that extended AMI, that's how much it would cost to do that across our entire city?
That's
That's
right.
the differential.
Inclusive of that, and then some additional sensors, but yes.
Okay.
That is a big driver, and you could be looking at a factor of 2 to 3 times as much for that remote connect and disconnect meter versus a standard AMI meter. And that's a lot of the reason behind trying to be strategic about the location. So we'll look at areas or accounts where we're frequently visiting and performing that connect disconnect action. Those meters as well, quite a number of them now also have pressure sensing and temperature sensing in them. So we'll want to put them in your high and lows on your pressure zones so that we can do some engineering analysis as well. So you might have some in locations for that reason as well.
I just think it's going to be really important to engage the community in those conversations about why we're choosing certain areas or certain, I guess, accounts to put those on, and why we're choosing to do that. So I just want to kind of state that
And I
kind
do
of
think
clearly now.
The overall rationale now remains that multi-tenant, you know, college town, lots of move-in, move-out, stress. I mean, that's sort of the general theme. Obviously, you know, there's other reasons that may factor into that as well. So we would be I think you're spot on with that. I think the other thing that I'd like to leave the council with is, when you go this route with this project, there would definitely be a number of policy changes. You could just imagine the ability to turn off and on, the ability to push out more communications and alerts. So there will be a number of things that kind of go beyond just business process change, that are really policy changes that I think will eventually wind their way up to this body. And so, you know, as we would go through planning exercises for this, that would be part of the stakeholder engagement, to continue to surface those concerns so that this group understood the policy issues that are really, you know, at play, whether it's security, convenience, information. They're related to a lot of different areas. So good questions.
Yeah, no, I just really appreciate that. I just, you know, I think that it's really important in setting our expectations for the public and making sure that they really understand what we expect to deliver to them, and that it's not that every single meter is going to get this feature, because if that's their expectation and then that's not what we deploy, we're going to have a lot of angry citizens on our hands.
No, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't want to set an incorrect expectation at all. Absolutely.
Councilmember Tortorella.
Yeah, I don't know if this was asked before, but these sensors on these meters, will they detect like frozen pipes or pipes that are about to be frozen and alert the homeowner potentially?
The meters that do have the temperature sensing, no, those are the more costly meters.
Right.
They'll give you an alarm if there's a degree that is reached. On your basic AMI meters, you can look at flow, but it won't tell you, I believe, if a
Yeah, so the answer is, on the right-hand side, I think, not all, but many of the vendors that are producing product over in the right-hand column do have the individual temperature sensors, so they could do exactly what you're talking about. But there are also network devices in column 2 that maybe not go down to each home level, but they could go on sections of pipe to really keep an eye on temperature, being very well aware when temperature drops, so that the distribution staff could make adjustments and begin to at least close valves here or send out alerts here, or whatever preventative measures may need to be taken.
All right. I got a question for Mr. Madden here. Last year's ice storm, do you know the damage to pipes? Do we have a report on how much we lost? Will a benefit or a feature like this it was not worth it then? Based on last year's ice storms and how many pipes were burst?
Yeah, no, if we don't buy the fancy ones that have a temperature gauge on every meter, I don't see how we could actually help each homeowner with that.
Yeah. You could, even in this moderate AMI option, you can also add some temperature sensors throughout the distribution network, as Todd was mentioning, which would give you an indicator, but again, it wouldn't be down to that individual home level.
I can give you the rationale in Galveston because we're working there, and they obviously were hit really hard by the freeze.
Right.
And that's really what pushed them over to that third column. And they know that there's really not a good day-to-day, week-to-week, year-to-year business case. It's negative. But their rationale was they almost shut down a level 1, medical center. Just their ability to deal with a catastrophic situation, they kind of viewed it as, we know we're paying extra, but in that if it happens once in 10 years with flooding, with hurricanes, with other things, we know that all that information would allow us to make adjustments that could save property. So it's just very, very difficult because we were kind of challenged with trying to really monetize that and put a number to it, and it's very difficult to put a number to it. But that is, I think there's no doubt if a big event happened that would help save a lot of money.
Well, at least help the adjusters and the homeowners and file claims in the city do their claims too on the city-owned property. So
Can I maybe add something?
Sure.
So if we say the moderate AMI is kind of just saying that's where we want to align. When we go to procurement, is there anything that prohibits us from asking for costs for these additional measures and then making that decision once we actually have a cost in hand?
Not in the least.
Okay, so we could put out a procurement, ask for those things,
Yeah.
understand what those numbers are, and then make a more informed decision.
And those prices are definitely coming down, and we're seeing adjustments. I don't think they're going to swing so dramatically in 6 months, but absolutely that could be reconsidered and could be a part of
And
that.
I'll follow up too. After the freeze, after it froze our homes, it would have detected leaks.
Right.
Which we don't know those
Yes.
30, 60 days. The ice is over the lid, we estimated. And so we'll get that immediately. It'll send a red dot on the screen and we'll know there's something wrong in that usage. So that we will definitely get. And that's one of my favorite things on this.
Yeah.
Is right now we're getting 30, 60, 90 day return time to tell them you have a leak.
Right.
And this is going to get it really quick.
that's with which package, or the basic or the moderates?
The moderate should
The
get
moderate
that.
will have all the leak detection for every
All right,
account.
outstanding.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And sorry, just to tag on to what Nathan had mentioned as well, as we move into the bidding phase, we would absolutely have these as the firm requirements, and then we'll ask for pricing on everything for any type of value added components, so that you can come back and revisit it and determine if that's a worthwhile venture to a small scale or to a larger extent.
Okay, Councilmember Schuler?
Yeah, my questions were kind of in this kind of same line of questioning, just in terms of like trying to get more for, I guess, our price. But I know that we've talked about like what the rate increase was going to look like for the vote. And would that fall in line with this moderate AMI price right now? Have we looked at all at the cost for the increase for something like the extended AMI to do it kind of across our system? Have we looked at like how expensive or what the rate would be to users?
Just because the full package, that plus the disinfection is a big ticket.
Yeah.
30 million, plus I need some more for pipe replacements because we're getting behind on fixing old iron pipes. So
Sure.
I just figured, I don't think we can handle the big increase. So I'm trying to I'm getting pieces. And then in
No, I
5
think
years,
that's fair.
I'll do what I said, and I'll come back and we'll need another one in 5 years. Water is looking like it needs it as we go forward for many years here.
Yeah. I did have another question. Oh, can you explain about if this grant, so you said that it was $2 million that we could ask for, like how would that fit into this 15 million,
Yep.
8,000,
Not-
800,000?
Yep, absolutely. So it's not accounted for in here, so you would just assume, right, a reduction by 2 million, and it's a matching grant, so you would have to show that you're matching that 2 million and then some. And the DOI does like to see that you're putting forth more funding than just that amount, so you would be, right, well positioned for that.
Okay.
To your first question, if we do the moderate, everything will still be configured where we can implement some of those technologies as we need to. So the backbone will be there.
Awesome. Thank you.
Okay, well, I'm not seeing any other questions, but thank you for the presentation. I think this is really exciting to modernize our infrastructure and consumerize delivery of infrastructure. So thank you for that, and I'm excited to work on this for the ballot in April.
Thank
All right,
you.
thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, our second item is consideration of adjourning into an executive session. So hang out, use the restroom if you need to real quick before we shut the doors.
Do you want to go ahead and do your motion?
Sure. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn to executive session.
So moved.
Second.
Third.
Good evening, and welcome to the City Council, Norman Utilities Authority, Norman Municipal Authority, and Norman Tax Increment Finance Authority meeting of September 28th, 2021. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Councilmember Studley is absent. Councilmember Schuler.
Here.
Councilmember Lynn.
Here.
Councilmember Hall.
Here.
Councilmember Tortorello.
Here.
Councilmember Foreman.
Here.
Councilmember Holman.
Here.
Councilmember Peacock.
Here.
Mayor Clark.
Here. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item 1 is consideration of approval, rejection, amendment, and/or postponement of the City Council special session minutes of May 18th, 2021, and the City Council, Norman Utilities Authority, Norman Municipal Authority, and Norman Tax Increment Finance Authority minutes of September 14th, 2021. I need a motion to approve the minutes.
So moved.
So moved.
Thank you.
Second.
The motion on the floor is to approve the minutes. Council members, you may cast your votes.
All votes have been cast and the motion to approve the minutes passes unanimously.
Thank you. Item 2, consideration of approval, acceptance, acknowledgement, rejection, amendment, and/or postponement of Proclamation 2122-7, a proclamation of the Mayor of City of Norman, Oklahoma, proclaiming Tuesday, September 28th, 2021, as National Voter Registration Day in the City of Norman. I need a motion to acknowledge receipt of the proclamation.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. The motion on the floor is to acknowledge receipt of the proclamation. Council members, you may cast your votes.
All votes, motion is approved unanimously.
Thank you. A proclamation of the Mayor of the City of Norman, Oklahoma, proclaiming Tuesday, September 28th, 2021, as National Voter Registration Day in the City of Norman. Whereas National Voter Registration Day is a nonpartisan civic holiday celebrating our democracy. And whereas the observation began in 2012 and is endorsed by several national organizations such as the National Association of Secretaries of State, the National Association of State Election Directors, the U.S. Election Assistant Commission, and the National Association of Elections Officials. And whereas, according to the 2020 U.S. Census data, as many as 1 in 4 eligible Americans are not registered to vote. And whereas progress continues to be made in the City of Norman, Cleveland County, and the State of Oklahoma to expand voter access. And whereas the City of Norman now has voter registration forms readily available at City Hall. And whereas many in-person voting events over the past 18 months were limited due to the COVID-19 pandemic, making it critical to promote voter registration on this special day and beyond. And whereas especially young voters should be encouraged to register to vote and can register in the state of Oklahoma at the early age of 17 and a half in order to be prepared at the first election after they are 18. Now, therefore, I, Mayor of the City of Norman, Oklahoma, do hereby proclaim Tuesday, September 28th, 2021, as National Voter Registration Day in the City of Norman, and invite all citizens to join me in celebrating by registering to vote and encouraging fellow citizens to exercise this valued civic liberty. I'd now like to recognize Mr. Bryant Rains, Secretary of the Cleveland County Election Board, to accept this proclamation and say a few words.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. As we all know, voting is very important. Like you said, it's the backbone of our democracy. And registration, I know today they had a registration drive down on campus. So we're trying to get the word out. And I know you all know we've got a big thing coming up in redistricting. And it's important for voters to keep their registration up to date, because we will be sending out new voter ID cards to every voter in the county, which right now is right at 167,000. It's up almost 30,000 from 10 years ago, so grown quite a bit. But just need to be sure and keep your registration up to date, get people out and get them registered to vote. And thank you again.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Now on to council announcements. We'll begin with Councilmember Schuler in Ward 2.
Well, I love the fanfare for National Voter Registration Day. So I was the person that was helping the students do those voter registration drives on campus today. I advise a student group that's in my day job as part of my day job. And so they had 3 locations on campus and registered close to 200 new voters. Some in the city of Norman, some at their place of residence, their permanent registration in Texas, other places, but getting students kind of into that process. So really excited about today, and just encourage everyone, if you are not registered, to register, but also to check your voter registration status as well. So if you've moved, changed your address in the last year, the last month, go ahead and check out the Oklahoma Voter Portal. It's a great tool. You can check your voter registration status. You can apply for your absentee ballots there. You can check your polling location, all kinds of great things. So it's just a really great tool that the election board has for us. Some of the other announcements, just want to highlight fall cleanup is coming up. And want to highlight in Ward 2, most of us have Tuesday pickup, and then a few of us have Wednesday pickup dates. So if you have Tuesday pickup, October 9th is your date for fall cleanup. And if you have a Wednesday pickup date, October 16th is your day. And then I've also, because this is coming up for fall cleanup, I've also gotten a number of questions about household hazardous waste collection. I know that everyone is very excited about our new facility, and when is that going to come online, and when can we start getting drop-offs there. I got an update at the end of August from that department, and their very tentative date, the last I had heard, was sometime in December. So that is forthcoming, and I think they're trying to move as fast as they can to get that facility up and running. So soon to have our facility up and running. That's all. Thanks.
Thank you. Councilman Berlin, Ward 3.
Councilman Schuler stole my thunder about the fall cleanup. I'm guessing in Ward 3 that it's going to be next Monday for most people. That's October 2nd. That's all.
Well, thank you. Ward 4, Councilmember Hall.
So I'd like to thank the OU students that invited me to participate in voter registration day at OU. One of the more rewarding parts of serving as a council member is to get to know as many constituents as you possibly can. I have a lot of students that live in Ward 4 and was able to meet some of my brand new voters today who chose to fill out their voter registration form. So that's always a fun way to get to meet new voters and to get them involved in the process and the importance of local elections where their voice really can be heard and they really can make a difference. So I want to thank them for inviting me to participate. I also want to announce National Night Out on Tuesday, October 12th from 5 to 9. This is an event that the Norman Police Department coordinates for many years now, and it's actually one of my favorite events to get neighbors out and getting them talking to one another. We've had to make some adaptations over the last year or two because of COVID, and so there's going to be a big event at Sooner Mall. I know that a lot of neighborhoods are still planning events, and sadly, it's on Tuesday, October 12th, so the city council will not be able to participate that night because we have a city council meeting, but I encourage neighborhoods to make plans, get together, participate out at the mall. There's going to be lots of activities and fun things for kids to do and an opportunity to get to know your neighbors inside and outside your neighborhood. The next thing I want to discuss is Councilmember Schuler and I continue to work on setting up a joint Ward 2 and Ward 4 meeting that tentatively is going to be at the end of October, we're hoping. And the topic is going to be all things trees, and we're hoping to have representatives from OEC and OG&E to talk about their protocol and how they go about deciding how to address trees that are interfering with electrical lines, which is a sensitive topic in Wards 2 and Ward 4. And Tim Vermillion, our urban forester, will also be there. So as soon as we have a date certain, we'll be sure and let you know. Another fun opportunity that's been offered to myself and also to other council members is Gray Owl Coffee on Gray is interested in hosting coffee with council members. And so I am working on a tentative date, but it's going to be something that's open to any council member who would like to take advantage of the community center that they're trying to create with their small local business.
Thank you. Ward 5, Councilmember Tortorello.
Thank you, Mrs. Hall and Mrs. Schuler, for taking away my thunder now. So, I'd like to go ahead and announce to Ward 5 that we do have fall cleanup. Since our trash falls on a Monday, they're going to pick up your stuff on a Saturday, so just make sure it gets out, and that's it.
Thank you. Ward 6, Councilmember Foreman.
My announcement was also the trash pickup for Ward 6. It's a very popular topic tonight. For us, most people in Ward 6, we are Thursday, and so your pickup date will be October 23rd. Thank you.
Thank you. Ward 7, Councilmember Holman.
Thank you. I would echo the same comments from my colleagues about the pickup day and also about voter registration day. It was, I was able to make it over to campus as well. Big part of Ward 7 has the university campus in it, so I was also able to talk to some new students that registering to vote that happen to live in my ward, and just talking to them about the importance of voting in local elections and how every vote really matters. And if they're students, and they may not be from here, but if they're going to live here for 4, 5, 6, 7 years, that voting in local elections and having a say in what goes on is very important. So it was really nice being able to interact that way today on campus, get people registered. There was a number of different folks from different backgrounds, from farms in Texas to, I think I ran into one student that was from New York City. So very interesting, and I appreciate the invite and the opportunity. Also wanted to mention with the new census data, some of the very interesting stuff that I've discovered about it. For one example, city of Oklahoma City accounted for almost half of the entire growth in the whole state over the last 10 years. It was one of only 11 cities in the United States that grew by over 100,000 people. Norman, we grew by about 18,000 people in the last 10 years. Tulsa grew by about 23,000, so we're right on their heels. As an example, in comparison, Moore grew by 7,000. So Norman grew by more than double the population of Moore in the last census. We grew by more than Edmond and Broken Arrow, and Lawton, unfortunately for them, lost population in the most recent census. So just some of the more interesting census data that really impacts how we provide services in Norman, how representation is drawn out, and those different things. We've added more people to this city in the last 10 years than a lot of decently sized towns in the state of Oklahoma. You know, our city council wards have more people in it. Let's see, we have 5 times more people in our wards almost than the whole town of Noble in each of our wards. That's really something to consider. So it's really interesting data. The census stuff is what got me interested in watching city council meetings when I was a kid and getting interested in civic issues. So just wanted to mention that and encourage people, if you haven't had the chance, to go and take a look at some of the detailed data on the census website. It's very interesting. It goes into all sorts of demographic details, economic details, all sorts of stuff like that. And so the other thing I wanted to mention too was we've got a couple projects on the agenda tonight that are impacting Ward 7. There's some stuff at Reeves Park, and then a much-needed multimodal path on Constitution. If any of you travel that area of Norman, you'll be real familiar with the lack of a sidewalk and railroad crossing right there for pedestrians. So very interested to talk about that tonight and looking forward to it. Thank you.
Thank you for that glimpse into data, Councilmember Holman. Yep. Ward 8, Councilmember Peacock.
Thank you. Yeah, I just want to highlight a couple of events happening in Ward 8 this weekend. First, the Pioneer Library System is having its annual Touch a Truck event this Saturday from 9 to 12 at the Cleveland County Fairgrounds. This is an event, is a place for children to climb on board and explore their favorite large vehicles and even get the chance to honk the horn. Drivers and experts will be on hand to answer questions. There will actually be a quiet hour from 9 to 10 to accommodate those with sensory sensitivity. The other event, also on Saturday, is the 14th Annual Max Westheimer Airport Aviation Festival, which starts at 9 a.m. and lasts through 2 p.m. This event is not just for pilots, and it's a STEM and career networking event, plus family fun activities with the Sooner Flight Academy. So I hope to see a great turnout at both events.
All right. Well, piling on to things to do on Saturday, I've said it before and I'll say it again. If you are bored in Norman, it is your own fault. The Norman Philharmonic will be performing at 3 p.m. at McFarland. So if you didn't know that we had our own Philharmonic, now's a chance to go check them out. We also have 2 Move with the Mayor events in October. This Saturday at 9 a.m. is the Move with the Mayor 5K. It'll be at Ruby Grant, and it'll be the first 5K to utilize the 5K route at that brand new park that was funded by taxpayer dollars through the Norman Forward Initiative. It's free to participate, but if you'd like a timed run and a race medal, I believe we still have a few of those left, it's $15, and you can find it on the Norman Parks and Recreation or my Facebook page. And then the final Move with the Mayor event for the year will be tennis at Westwood, October 23rd at 10 a.m. Another Norman Forward project that was helped funded by taxpayer dollars. So come check out what you've paid for, move around a bit, and enjoy all that Norman has to offer. Finally, not this weekend, but next weekend is fall break and OU Texas. So let's go Sooners. Thank you, Anthony. All right. Okay, moving on to the consent docket. This item is placed on the agenda so that the city council, by unanimous consent, can designate those routine agenda items that they wish to be approved or acknowledged by one motion. If any item proposed does not meet the approval of all council members, the item will be heard in regular order. Staff recommends that items 3 through item 22 be placed on the consent docket. I need a motion to place items 3 through 22 on the consent docket.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. The motion on the floor is to place items 3 through 22 on the consent docket. Council members, you may cast your votes.
All votes have been cast and the motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. Item 3, consideration of adoption ordinance 2122-17 upon first reading by title, amending section 10-204 to exempt registered community resource refrigerators, adding article 36, community resource refrigerators, adding definitions, permit requirements, permit application procedures, safety requirements, and posting requirements, and providing for the severability thereof. Item 4, consideration of adoption of ordinance 2122-20 upon first reading by title, adopting and ratifying the assessment roll for the University North Park Business Improvement District, establishing the time and terms of payment of the assessments and other expenses, fixing penalties to be charged for delinquent payment of the assessment or an installment thereof, setting forth the tracts of parcels of land against which the assessments are being adopted, ratified, and levied, directing the city clerk to prepare, sign, attest, and record with the county clerk of Cleveland County following passage of the payment deadline, a claim of lien for any unpaid amount due and assessed against a tract or parcel of land, providing for the severability thereof. Item 5, submission and acknowledgement of receipt of the Finance Director's investment report as of August 31, 2021, and directing the filing thereof. Item 6, submission and acknowledgement of the monthly departmental reports for the month of August 2021. Item 7, consideration of approval of authorization to purchase a fire apparatus from Sutphin Corporation through Heartland Fire Trucks LLC in the amount of $580,222.17, utilizing the Houston-Galveston area contract. Item 8, consideration of approval of declaration of surplus and/or obsolete equipment and materials and authorizing the sale or disposal thereof. Item 9, consideration of approval of a final payment in the amount of $5,557.17 to the Oklahoma Department of Transportation for Contract 1718-57, a federal aid project agreement with ODOT for the installation of pavement markings, Phase 6, along various federal functionally classified roadways throughout the city. Item 10, consideration of approval of an amendment to Special Claim 2122-1 submitted by the Cleveland County Sheriff's Office, adding an additional $432.49 to the claim for a revised amount of $15,177.13 for expenses incurred at the Cleveland County Detention Center on July 3rd, 2021. Item 11, consideration of approval of amendment number 1 to contract 1920-109, a Norman Utilities Authority contract with Barrett L. Williamson Architects Incorporated, increasing the contract amount by $261,800 for a revised contract amount of $386,350 to provide additional design services for the new line maintenance facility. Item 12, consideration of approval amendment number 1 to contract 1920-119, extending the Congestion Mitigation and Air Quality CMAQ grant from the Association of Central Oklahoma Governments until February 28, 2022. Item 13, consideration of approval of change order number 1 to contract 2122-6 by with Haskell Lemon Construction Company, decreasing the contract amount by $219,320.95 for a revised contract amount of $151,049.05 to remove the Imhoff Creek Bridge project from the FYE 2022 Bridge Maintenance Program. Item 14, consideration of acceptance of a grant in the amount of $101,626 from the Oklahoma Highway Safety Office to be used by the Police Department to conduct high visibility enforcement, saturation patrols, information education campaigns directed toward traffic safety, participation in the Highway Safety Office mobilizations, and to purchase LiDARs. Approval of a contract and budget appropriation from the special grant fund balance as outlined in the staff report. Item 15, consideration of awarding of bid and approval contract 2122-31 with Messer Electric in the amount of $181,608. Change order number 1, increasing the contract amount by $4,250 for a revised contract amount of $186,128, and the accompanying bonds for the upgrades to the campus corner lighting system, adopting a resolution granting tax exempt status, and budget appropriation as outlined in the staff report. Item 16, consideration of approval of an agreement with Burlington Northern Santa Fe Railroad and the Oklahoma Department of Transportation for the construction and maintenance of a multimodal sidewalk on the north side of Constitution Street from Jenkins Avenue to Classen Boulevard. Item 17, consideration of approval of contract 2122-58 with Olson Associates in the amount of $401,500 for the design of the 36th Avenue Northwest Phase 3 widening project from Indian Hills Road to Moore city limits. Item 18, consideration of acceptance of an Oklahoma Office of Homeland Security State Homeland Security Program grant in the amount of $30,090 to be used by the Police Department to purchase night vision devices. Approval of a contract and budget appropriation from the special grant fund balance as outlined in the staff report. Item 19, consideration of acceptance of an Emergency Solutions Grant Corona Relief 2 award from the Oklahoma Department of Commerce in the amount of $400,000 for the operation of the City of Norman Emergency Shelter. Approval of a contract and budget appropriations as outlined in the staff report. Item 20, consideration of approval of contract 2122-63 with Cleveland County Sheriff's Department and the Board of County Commissioners of Cleveland County to provide for the incarceration of city prisoners in the Cleveland County Jail Facility at a cost of $71.86 per day per prisoner. Item 21, consideration of approval amendment number 2 to contract 1819-132, a Norman Municipal Authority contract with Flint Co. Construction Company, increasing the contract amount by $7,452,086 for a revised contract amount of $8,296,438 to provide construction for the youth baseball, softball, and adult softball improvements at Reeves Park. Item 22, consideration of adoption resolution 2122-39, acknowledging receipt of the 2022 assessment roll and assessment plat for the University North Park Business Improvement District, instructing the city clerk to give notice of a hearing on the proposed assessment roll and containing other positions related thereto. I need a motion to approve or reject the consent docket.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Thank you. Are there any comments from council regarding any item on the Councilmember Holman?
I have a couple of questions. So number 15, the campus corner lighting. I just for the public's sake, I was kind of interested in the, I guess, misunderstanding of when they were first in the lights, when the lights on campus corner were first installed, and we thought OG&E was going to take care of them, and I guess they haven't been, and then we found out that we're responsible for them, and so I'm just kind of interested in maybe a quick summary of how that happened and what we're doing going forward, I guess, after we replace them again.
David Riesland, transportation engineer. You know, I don't know if anybody really knows the exact answer to your question. It was installed. I think people here were under the impression that OG&E was maintaining it all along.
Yeah.
We found out only in May that they were not.
So the lights were being replaced though, right? Like the bulbs, or do they just last?
I think we just got lucky and they lasted that long.
Okay. So going forward, though, we're going to replace those fixtures,
Right.
and we're going to maintain.
We're going to maintain. They're going to be of a voltage our crews will be able to maintain.
Okay. Well, that's, I think, the only question I had about that one. Thank you.
Okay.
And then number 16, a question about the Constitution Street project. I just wanted, I didn't realize you'd be on this one too. I just wanted to clarify, because I know it talks about the multimodal path on the north side, and that's what this is. But we do have future plans to put in a regular sidewalk on the south side that crosses the railroad crossing as well, right?
That's correct.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify that, since most of the apartments and everything are on the south side, and it is really hard to cross Constitution right there, so.
It's just that this project came first.
Came forward.
Hence the agreement for this and the crossing on Constitution.
And then when the
Street, so.
Constitution Road project
Yes.
comes through in a couple of years, we'll do the other side, or the south side of the
Yes.
crossing. Great. And then, my other two is about the jail cost and then Reeves Park, so I don't. Okay. My question was number 20, just the daily jail cost, and this one's always interesting to me because what it costs per day if the Norman Police Department has to arrest somebody and take them to the county jail, what does it cost taxpayers in the city of Norman per day? And this year it's $71.86 a day, and that seems like a pretty considerable jump. From my last recollection, it was like $53 a day.
Yeah, it's like around 52, and I believe the jump, it's twofold. One is the rise in cost on just materials, labor, different things that they purchase up there. The other thing is they didn't have as many prisoners coming in, so they just divide the total cost of operating that jail between the number of prisoners than we pay by a per prisoner. So it went up. Hopefully it will go back down next year.
That's very interesting. I appreciate that information, Chief. Just something I think everybody should be interested in, that it is very costly to have to put people in jail, so we.
Yeah, hopefully we recover some of that cost through court, but.
Yes. Thank you very much, Chief. I appreciate it.
Councilmember Holman, it definitely represents a disincentive to incarcerate, and we do release an awful lot of folks with a ticket in hand and a notice to appear in court. And if the judge says you got to go, then you got to go. But yeah, we release a lot of folks on dockets to avoid that expense.
Wonderful. Thank you. And then my last one was number 21 with Reeves Park. Maybe Jason, or I'm not sure who might. Somebody from. Just wondering, just maybe a status update for the public's pleasure of what we're doing here to kind of get started with the Reeves Park.
Oh yeah,
That are a Norman Forward, another taxpayer approved project. It's kind of when it's all done, will really transform Reeves Park into something special, I think, more so than it is already.
Exactly. And we kind of have two projects combined into one that's going on at Reeves Park. First is what we were expecting to go on at Reeves. The maintenance facility, park maintenance facility, is going to come down. They're going to build a T-ball facility with 4 fields, brand new concession stand, and all that good stuff right where the park maintenance facility is currently at. On the southeast corner, we're going to renovate those fields over there and bring in new dirt, new fencing, and make those look brand spanking new. Hopefully get a little bit of a renovation sometime in the future with that bathroom and concession stand. And then the kind of the new part, that also additional parking, that's a big piece of what's kind of going on out there. And with the vote that got turned down this past August, we did have had to split up what we would call the multi-sports complex project, which was football fields, practice football fields and an adult softball complex. Those ended up being split into 2 projects. We have a groundbreaking ceremony coming up in here in a few weeks for the football projects, which got moved to Ruby Grant, but a large portion of that is also our adult softball complex, which they're going to renovate those fields and bathrooms and concession stands up there on the northeast corner of the park. So a lot of new things going on. In total, we're going to be going in there and working on 14 fields, showing some improvements, new sidewalks, new concession stands, renovated concession stands. All this is going to be kind of an updated, new look park. And kind of a little plug for our adult softball, or excuse me, our youth softball. If y'all haven't paid attention, they brought in a lot of great tournaments this past summer. Big effect on our hotels, motels. One thing that didn't suffer during the pandemic was sports tourism, especially with our younger kids, and they did a great job of bringing in a lot of baseball tournaments for us and at Reeves Park.
Okay, thank you, Jason. And there will be other phases of Reeves Park that come after this.
This one's kind of knocking out the majority of everything, correct?
So
James?
there's-
What other phases do we have coming up? I think this mainly covers everything that's remaining. Now, we'll have a little bit of money left over that we can come in and I might be answering your question for you. He's the entertaining one.
Let him talk.
And we'll be able to provide some shade and maybe a maintenance barn for the baseball group that's out there, correct?
Yes and no. Yes, you may be thinking of the overall master plan for the park. So we have a large, long-range master plan that will need more funding. I mean, that's another Norman Forward vote or something to improve. There's going to be a loop road that kind of goes through the park, coming in off of basically Lawrence Street, looping through, adding more parking in the interior of the park, coming out at Watsack Drive and Jenkins. So everything where the medieval fair happens, where that area, there's a plan to someday improve a lot of that area, improve restrooms, add a splash pad, do some more things in that area. And then
The detention pond and the
detention pond will be built, half of it will be built with this project. The other half isn't necessary because we didn't get the funding, like you said, for the new softball fields. We're going to renovate the 6 that are there on the north end of the park. Long-range plan would be to tear those out and do a 4-plex of youth softball and then 2 major baseball fields up in the far northeast corner. But that's a longer range plan. So for the long range, yeah, there's another amount of funding that will be needed. This will accomplish everything in our phase 1, which is the sports improvements. So
the stuff we had to kind of cut back a little bit to meet our current.
yes, to get this sports stuff done, yeah. So for the super long range, it would be another pot of millions to do the rest of the stuff. And the big, I thought you were talking about the long range master plan.
Yes, I am.
Which is for the whole park, everything besides
what
sports.
What we originally proposed in Norman Forward when we, the whole thing, the deck and the fishing dock and the
correct
grand lawn with the amphitheater.
Yeah, the entertainment stage, all that. That's not coming right now. We're focusing on sports right now.
So if we can get this first part done right and get it out there, then in the future we may be asking to fund those other improvements at Reeves Park as well.
Our plan is to get it done right.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Any other comments from council regarding the consent docket? Councilmember Hall.
Yeah, I just wanted to circle back to agenda item number 15, which was the Campus Corner lighting project. And it's mostly just a comment and wanting to express my appreciation to the city staff and how responsive they've been to a conversation that started almost a year ago with a lot of maintenance, repair, and improvement projects that needed to happen on Campus Corner. So they have been working in close collaboration with the Campus Corner Merchants Association. And I don't have any questions. I just want to let you know how much I appreciate all the work that has gone into that. This is just another project. I think this might be the third project possibly on Campus Corner that's been in process. And I think it was a little bit of a surprise to everybody of the conditions with the lighting system. And so we've had to kind of go back and regroup. So I just appreciate the ability of our staff to respond to the needs of our small businesses. And this is just a great example of how collaboration between a special district in our city and city staff can really position us for what their long-range goal is, and that's to make Campus Corner the best destination point for the SEC. So thank you.
Didn't see that coming, Councilmember Hall. All right, okay. Any other comments from council? Buttons aren't working. Yep, one more.
Yeah, I would be remiss if I also didn't just point out agenda item number 19. Again, appreciation to city staff and our CDBG grants manager, Lisa Craig, for her continued success in getting emergency solutions grants for the city of Norman. This one in particular is going to allow us to keep our emergency shelter open until August of 2022. We have discovered over the last 2 years that this is a significant need in our community, and Lisa and the rest of the staff and our homeless coordinator have worked tirelessly to find the funding sources that we need to continue the operation of the emergency shelter, and I appreciate all of their efforts.
All right. Were you just testing the button, city manager pile, or?
No, I'm good.
Okay, all right. Seeing no other comments, the motion on the floor is to approve the consent docket. Council members, you may cast your votes.
All votes have been cast, and the motion to approve the consent docket passes unanimously.
Thank you. Item 23, consideration of adoption, rejection, amendment, and/or postponement of ordinance 2122-1 upon second and final reading, closing a portion of 17-foot utility easement located within Lot 1, Block 1, TSTB Addition, Section 1 to the City of Norman, Cleveland County, Oklahoma, and providing for the 601 12th Avenue Northeast. I'll entertain a motion to adopt or reject the ordinance on second reading, section by section.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Is there a representative from the applicant to make a presentation? All right.
I brought a graphic.
Okay. Hold on. Introduce yourself and speak into the mic so people can hear you at home.
My name is Sunday Boer. I'm with SGA Design Group. And the Reader's Digest condensed version of what we're doing here is, since the pandemic, Walmart has noticed, the increase in the online grocery pickup service. So in order to continue to, serve the Norman customers, we had to expand. And in that expansion, we kind of needed to cross over a utility easement and relocate it. That's the relocation is what's in red, and the yellow shows where the easement is.
Okay.
And if it continues to go like that, we'll be back again. Because the online pickup service is just...
Picking up.
Yeah, pick it up.
There you go. Are there any questions from council regarding this item? I have one. I am one of the customers that's added to the increase of the pickup because it's very convenient.
Thank you.
Can you please quit using plastic bags? Sorry, I just had to ask it. Just pass that on, send that up top. I'm
pass
sure you
that on
can't
to
answer it,
corporate.
but
I don't know what the answer is to that yet.
it
but
hurts my soul every
what
time.
the part that hurts my soul is they'll put one item. and
Exactly.
have
You get
15
me.
bags.
Okay.
Yes.
Pass that on. Okay. Thank you. Any other questions from council regarding this item? Seeing none, this is an opportunity for members of the public to make comments regarding this item. Are there any comments from the members of the public? Seeing none, this is a final opportunity for council to make comments regarding this item. Seeing none, the motion on the floor is to adopt the ordinance on second reading. Council members, you may cast your votes.
All votes have been adopt the ordinance upon second reading passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll now entertain a motion to adopt or reject the ordinance on final reading.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. The motion on the floor is to adopt the ordinance on final reading. Council members, you may cast your votes.
All votes have been cast, and the motion to adopt the ordinance upon final reading passes unanimously.
Thank you. Item 24 is consideration of acceptance, rejection, amendment, and/or postponement of easement 2122-16, a permanent water line easement donated by Walmart Real Estate Business Trust in order to relocate a water line at 601 12th Avenue Northeast. I'll entertain a reject the easement.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. This is a companion item to the previous item. Are there any further questions from council? Seeing none, sorry, Councilmember Lynn, you just look so miserable. We're almost done. We're almost done. Are there any further public comments regarding this item? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, are there any final comments from council regarding this item? Seeing none, the motion on the floor is to adopt the resolution. Council members, you may cast your votes.
All votes have been to accept the easement passes unanimously.
Thank you. And I do want to clarify, it's not like Councilmember Lynn is bored. It is that he had surgery earlier and is toughing it out to be here. So we appreciate you being here, Councilmember Lynn. Okay, item 25, consideration of adoption, rejection, amendment, and/or postponement of ordinance 2122-19 upon second and final reading. The City of Norman, Oklahoma. Article 8, Section 20-805 of the Code of the City of Norman, Oklahoma, to prohibit head-in parking in spaces reserved for reverse angle back-end parking and providing for severability thereof. I'll entertain a motion to adopt or reject the ordinance on second reading, section by section.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. I'd like to recognize not Jeannie Snyder to make a presentation.
Gee, sat down. No, David Riesland, transportation engineer. You get me. So why do we want to introduce a pilot project? That's not really the back-end parking ordinance, but it's part of the ordinance, or the need to change the ordinance. There are currently 2 projects under design where back-end angle parking has been discussed. One of these is the James Garner Avenue Phase 3 from Acres to Duffy, and the other is the Gray Street two-way conversion. You can get a lot more parking within using back-end angle parking than you can using parallel parking, so it's very attractive from that aspect. We created a pilot project on James Garner Avenue between Sims and Acres in 2019 to show how parallel parking would work with the pull-off lane. That pull-off lane was part of our engineering design criteria at the time, but it had never been implemented. So we wanted to show the public how that worked. Because of that, because the pull-off lane exists, it gives us the space that we need to convert that to back-end angle parking without having to widen the road or anything like that. And the total cost of implementation is going to be less than $1,000 for a few signs and a little bit of striping. These are the existing parallel spaces on James Garner. You know, I will just draw your attention to the image. If you look closely in that image, what's happening? People are using the pull-off lane to double park. I don't believe that truck at the very bottom of the image is attempting to do a parking maneuver. I think it's parked there long term. So that was an unintended consequence of this pilot project. It was illegally being used for double parking. This is the proposed design of what we would implement on this trial basis to convert it to back-end angle parking for southbound traffic. And it does eliminate, you know, for some people's disdain, I suppose, does it eliminate that possibility to double park. But it does truly represent a safer operation because when you're exiting those spaces, you're able to see where you're going rather than backing out blindly. How does it work? Very similar to parallel parking, except you don't go parallel to the curb. You just go with the angle of the space. So you signal your right turn, you pull past the parking space and stop, reverse into the parking space, and when you leave, you just pull straight out. Those simple steps are illustrated in that diagram at the right. Some of the benefits of reverse angle parking, improved visibility and increased field of vision, fewer collisions. This is an interesting thing I hadn't really thought of until I started digging into this. Improved safety for children. If you think about when people pull into a head-in space, the doors open out at such a way that the children are directed to the back of the vehicle towards the street. When you back in angle park, the doors open up so they're forced towards the curb. Much safer situation for the kids. It's also better for loading and unloading. If you're trying to get into your trunk, it's easier from the sidewalk than it is from the street. Is it really safer than head-in angle parking? I found this study that Tucson, Arizona had done. I don't know all the details about it, but before they implemented back-end angle parking, they were seeing 3 to 4 bike car crashes per month, and after they saw none, at least in the 4 years following implementation. But overall, it is more safe. It's better for cyclists as well because they can see better what the vehicle's going to do. Will the transition be difficult? No, we don't think so. There is a concept of putting seed cars in the parking spaces so people have the visual of what they're supposed to do. But we've also been talking internally about what signs we would implement for northbound so people don't mistake that, hey, I can go park over there and pull head in into a back-end space. Where this is done, essentially all over the country. And this list could have been a whole lot bigger, but the font would have gotten really small and you would have probably had much luck reading it. So what do we need to be able to enforce this back and angle parking? Well, we don't really have anything in our code of ordinances right now that addresses parking the wrong way in a back end angle space, because we don't have any back end angle spaces. So we need something like that for our officers to be able to enforce this. That's why the main reason why we're here tonight. But going back to that, we think that over time, drivers are going to become more accustomed to this, and the tendency to want to pull head into a back-end space will die down. So we looked at ordinance section 20-805, and specifically that section deals with parking, stopping, or standing not to obstruct traffic. Specifically, no person shall park, stop, or stand a vehicle. And part 7 of that reads, facing the opposite way from the normal flow of traffic. Well, it seemed logical to just add on that portion in italics in the 3rd bullet, including turning across a double solid yellow line to park head in a space intended for reverse angle back in parking in the opposite direction. So the next step with approval tonight, we will begin tomorrow implementing the pilot project on James Garner, and we can begin enforcing it. Any questions? Be sure to answer.
Are there any questions from council? Councilmember Foreman.
Questions. What kind of plans do we have for campaigning this to the public to let them know that this is going to be coming and the signage?
We have developed a brochure that we can make available.
Okay, and then if this takes off and it does really well, how far do we see this spreading throughout the city?
Right now, we only see it spreading as far as James Garner and the Gray Street projects, but it could be open to any place.
Okay, thank you.
Building on her question, that's student housing essentially, and you really gotta tell them and then tell them again and then tell them a 3rd time. So I'm thinking like maybe one of the community cookouts the police department just did right out front, show some examples, hand the brochures out then, and make sure they actually talk to you, because I don't think a brochure is gonna do it. So little hands-on with that specific target is what I would recommend. And then, they'll move out and you'll get brand new ones that move in there. So just keep that in mind. Council Member Peacock.
It's more of a comment, so I can come back.
Okay, come back to that. Any other questions from council regarding this item? Seeing none, this is an opportunity for members of the public to make comments regarding this item. Seeing none, Councilmember Peacock.
Yeah, I just want to thank you for the presentation and thank you for highlighting some of the positive safety aspects of this design. I think the reason why this makes so much sense to me and so appealing to me in these areas is that these are 2 streets, Gray and James Garner, that we really want the traffic to remain at a slow speed and for those streets to be pedestrian friendly with a very much walkability at the forefront of our minds. So this is a great first step in slowing down the cars and making those those streets safer for pedestrians. So thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Holman.
Thank you. I agree completely with my colleague. This has been something I've actually been interested in for a number of years, even before I ran for council years ago. And I've done it in downtown Tulsa. I think that's the only other city in Oklahoma that has it Enid also. I think you said Enid. And I'm very excited to be able to do a pilot project on a small section of James Garner, see how that works, and that we have the opportunity on Gray Street with the changes that we're making that are also another voter-approved project, that we have an opportunity there to make these changes. I think it can be very hard to change existing spaces that people are used to using, but introducing it kind of like this is a great way, I think. And in some context, just so folks understand, one of the biggest complaints, as long as I've grown up in Norman, my dad complained about it every time we go eat at the diner or anywhere downtown, is every time you park down on Main Street and you get ready to leave, there's always a truck that parked next to you or a van, and you can't see and you're trying to back out, and there's 3 lanes of very fast one-way traffic coming at you. And if you're lucky, you might be able to see the reflection in the glass on the buildings. And so with this arrangement, if it takes off, you would be able to just look and directly pull out without having to worry about large vehicles parked next to you and things like that. So I'm very excited about this, and I do think once people see it in action, I think it will take off. So thank you very much for your work on this.
Thank you. Councilmember Hall.
Yes, I also want to say thank you for taking this approach. I really like the idea of doing a pilot project to allow us to get the message out to our community of what we're thinking for these very special corridors along James Garner with the James Garner 3 project, and also converting Gray to two-way. This ticks all of the boxes for working towards what I think is a common goal with my colleagues, to prioritize people and not cars in these particular areas of town, encourage walkability. James Garner 3 was actually designated as a special corridor in the 2014 transportation plan, and there is a lot of interest, not only with my colleagues, but with stakeholders in the immediate area of James Garner 3, to make sure that we really stay to the vision of what's intended at that special corridor, and we have a real opportunity to create a very special connecting road from the Main Street to Campus Corner. And with the addition of the well, we've just got such a bright future for what that could all look like to make it pedestrian friendly. So I agree that it gives us an opportunity to really do some intensive educating and messaging about trying it out, and I think people will discover, as we've addressed some of the concerns that you encounter in downtown Norman, that this is going to be a really great way to address some of those issues. So thank you for rolling it out this way.
Thank you. Councilmember Lynn.
I just had to take a picture of this and send it to my wife. It doesn't matter where we go. I've never known the woman to pull in the right way anyway. She backs into everything. And I sent her a picture of this, and I said, you know, I'm going to have to support this because this is your dream come true. And she said, and that's why I married you, because I knew eventually you'd come around. So I think you got my support. There you go. My wife thanks you.
I thank her as well. Okay, so the motion on the floor is to adopt the ordinance on second reading. Council members, you may cast your votes.
All votes have been cast, and the motion to adopt the ordinance upon second reading passes unanimously.
Thank you. I'll entertain a motion to adopt or reject the ordinance on final reading.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. The motion on the floor is to adopt the ordinance on final reading. Council members, you may cast your votes.
All votes have been cast, and the motion to adopt the ordinance on final reading passes unanimously.
Thank you. Item 26, consideration of acceptance, rejection, amendment, or postponement of 2122-16 upon second and final reading. Amending Section 13-108 in Article 1 of Chapter 13, Licenses and Occupations. Amending Article 34, Section 13-3401 in Chapter 13, Licenses and Occupations. Amending Section 424.1, C2 General Commercial District, and Section 426.1, I1 Light Industrial District, both in Article 11 of Chapter 22 Zoning Ordinance, and amending Section 450 Definitions in Article 14 of Chapter 22 Zoning Ordinance in order to add permitted and special uses for medical marijuana waste facilities, and to implement changes and resolve inconsistencies resulting from 2021 state law updates regarding medical marijuana and providing for the severability thereof. I'll entertain a motion to adopt or reject the ordinance on second reading, section by section.
Motion to adopt.
Second.
I'd like to recognize Beth Muckala, Assistant City Attorney, to make a presentation.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So we don't have a whole lot of updates. There wasn't a whole lot of new state law luckily this year. Of course, we kind of had a year off for COVID too, so it all happened very quickly. So we moved this through very quickly so that we would be ready to implement at the same time most of the state laws are taking effect on November 1st. So there were 4 bills that passed. 2272 is about disclosure of financial interest. You've probably read a lot about shell organizations that the state is trying to regulate more closely, make sure stuff is staying in the state. That's part of that. It doesn't affect our ordinances. 862, Senate Bill 862, that was just consistency on references to smoking and vaping, both marijuana and tobacco on a state level. We've already cleaned that up, so that doesn't affect us. 1033 It altered the setback language, how we measure that, the 1,000 feet for dispensaries from schools. It was effective immediately, and it had some extra language in there about situations that were problematic for cities with existing locations that were wrong. You probably remember at the beginning there were some errors, maybe some overlooked measurements, so that addressed that. House Bill 2646 is one of those big affairs that tries to make changes across the whole Patient Protection Act, and so it has several changes, a lot of language tweaks for consistency. Gram conversions were added. It is going to again change how we measure the school distance, the 1,000 feet. It becomes effective November 1st. So we had a change that took effect immediately, and it's going to change again November 1st. So that's a little bit of fun trivia for you. There are going to be changes to the certificate of compliance process. Now, all of this that's in black, it doesn't affect our ordinances, but I wanted to make you aware. You'll remember when we adopted language that incorporated the certificate of compliance process 2 years ago. That was an annual process. It's no longer going to be annual. They only have to renew that now upon a change of occupancy or use. That's going to be very hard for us to identify ourselves. We're going to have to rely on licensees to do that, and as you know, that isn't always clear to them as well. So it's going to be a challenge going forward, and so we're going to have to see how that changes things. So the two that really affect us are changes to the definitions of dispensary and grower. They can now prepare pre-rolls. So that's going to, you're aware that we made some changes to kind of do that already. The state caught up with us, and so we're going to have to make some more changes now. Creation of hazardous, non-hazardous distinctions for processors is in the state law. Basically, OMMA gets to do this. They are going to do it effective November 1st, but we have not been given information about exactly what that means. So we're just going to try to be ready, have some placeholders ready to go, and then if we need to change a little more, we'll do that. Sorry, I went backwards. So dispensaries and growers now get to package and pre-roll. Dispensaries get to sell those to patients. Growers can sell theirs to the dispensaries. It changes state definitions, so we're updating all of those things. Come November 1st, our Tier 1 license category, which was grind and pre-roll, that's going to be moot. So we'll no longer be issuing those licenses November 1st. Also on that day, our use definitions and license definitions will kind of merge with the state definitions. And so our use for Tier 1 will really be indistinguishable from our use for dispensaries. So those will be interchangeable. That's what will happen November 1st. Hazardous, non-hazardous. As you can see, I included licensure categories for that. But they're really just kind of on a wait and see basis. The license fees are the same as been there, and we have made no differentiations because, again, we don't know really what the state is going to do. Best guess, and I think it's a pretty good one, this has to do with extraction, hazardous, non-hazardous, volatile, non-volatile. That was some of the early language. We've had plenty of applicants come in and talk about their procedures and how they might not be using chemicals like some extractors. They might have like a cold water press, I think, is one of the examples of a non-chemical extraction. So chances are they're trying to make some differentiations there and clarify the differences amongst those processors. So we're going to have more updates. We'll try to be ready for those. Waste disposal facilities were actually created on a state level in 2019, but they weren't issuing licenses immediately. During COVID, they did get that up and running. They have more regulations in place, and a few licenses have been issued. There was an initial cap of 10 that expires soon. None have located in Norman, but with the cap opening, it could be that they will. So city staff and planning has recommended some places where to put those. As you see, the definition of how you can dispose of that waste is pretty broad on a state level. There's even a catch-all according to what the ODEQ might approve. So we tried to pay attention to those areas and make it consistent with uses. Where you see references to incineration, that's generally where you're also going to see crematoriums or similar uses. And then, of course, in I-2, all uses are allowed unless specifically not allowed. So anything that would be allowed on a state level would be allowed in I-2. Oh, and of course, a licensure category with commensurate fee was added. Again, we're not venturing outside of the fees that we already had in place for other similar facilities. If there are increases that are needed, we'll try to anticipate those in future amendments. Goodness, it's doing it to me again. So going forward, this will be effective 30 days from now. So the waste facility provisions, those will be effective 30 days. But the majority that ties into the state law will become effective with the state law on November 1st. There will undoubtedly be new changes with the next legislative session. I've been assured that recreational use remains on the table as discussion point. We'll have to see if that will effectuate changes in our licensing. So far, the structures they've presented probably won't, but we'll have to see. And so with that, I would invite any questions.
Are there any questions from council? Councilmember Holman.
Thank you. Do you happen to know offhand how many currently licenses we have in Norman? For all businesses, all.
The planning department anticipated that question, so I know that Laura Hoggett has that answer.
Hello. We counted these up today. So we have 57 dispensaries, 70 growing facilities, 20 processors, and 1 testing lab.
Okay, thank you. Have we thought about maybe trying to host some informational sharing meeting? We've done it before. The police department hosted when open carry became legal, we had it in here actually, where they talked about the law, what it meant, what you could and couldn't do. Because I know I've had several businesses ask, what do these changes mean from the city standpoint? And at this change in the occupancy thing, or that's, very interesting. I think will be very difficult to, but I think if we could maybe do something like that, we're able to invite the businesses in Norman to come down here and talk about, we could give them a rundown of this is from the city's perspective, what we need, what these changes mean, and how we're going to need your help going forward to kind of do that. So maybe wait till after the November 1st but I'm anticipating every year there's going to be tweaks and changes, so it's probably be tough to keep up with, but that's something we might think about if we haven't already.
Thank you. Yes, that is a very good suggestion in light of the change to the certificate of compliance. That was an opportunity for us to all kind of learn together, grow together, keep in safety compliance together. So I do anticipate more changes. So I'll pass that on. We'll look into that.
Thank you.
Seeing no other questions from council regarding this item, this is an opportunity for members of the public to make comments. Madam Clerk, do we have anyone signed up? Seeing none, are there any final comments from council regarding this item? The only thing I would say is Norman was ahead of the game with Tier 1 zoning, just saying. So well done with us, and congratulations, state legislature, for catching up. The motion on the floor is to adopt the ordinance on second reading. Council members, you may cast your votes.
All votes have been adopt the ordinance upon second reading, passes unanimously.
Thank you. I'll entertain a motion to adopt or reject the ordinance on final reading.
Motion to adopt.
Second.
Thank you. The motion on the floor is to adopt the ordinance on final reading. Council members, you may cast your votes.
All votes have been cast, and the motion to adopt the ordinance upon final reading passes unanimously.
Thank you. On to our final item of the night, miscellaneous comment. Madam Clerk, do we have anyone signed up?
Yes, ma'am. We have 3 speakers tonight. First, we'll start with Dan Munson.
Dan Munson with Ward 6. So when I moved here about 20 years ago, a common theme that I heard was that the city of Norman is difficult to do business with. And so one of the things that I did was I recently reviewed the Plan Norman document, and this is from 2018. And if you go to the second page, there's like 80 people listed on it. There's city council, planning commission, there's a steering committee, and then there's the firms that put it together along with the city staff. And so there's a lot of good content in this, by the way. Lots of great content. One of the things that really concerned me, though, in this document was on page 2.45. And so on the page prior, it talks about policies and like how you're going to grow and stuff like that. One of the action items here, it says confirm and validate that large-scale industry and large office users for which there is currently a lack of adequate sites are not the target industries for the city. So it's saying we don't want large businesses to come to Norman. So if you're a large business and you want to expand in Norman, let's say by 1,000 people, and you need a couple 100,000 square feet, what this is saying is we need to confirm and validate that large-scale industry and large office users are not the target. I don't think that's the message we want. I mean, if you go down the Ed Noble Parkway, is there not space for a large office complex? I think there is. So I'd like that to be reviewed. It's on a website that potential employers could look at. So I would like that to be considered to be removed from that document, because I don't think that's what we want in Norman, is an anti-business message. On good news, congratulations to Visit Norman. They secured the 2022 Mickey Mantle 16U World Series. That's happening next year in Norman. What a great opportunity to put Norman, Oklahoma on the map as a baseball town. I mean, this is going to be premier athletes coming to Norman to play baseball. And what we heard earlier tonight is we've got some new baseball fields coming. Let's make sure they have a great experience in Norman. Let's make sure that they want to come back to Norman. So thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Okay, our next speaker, I don't believe she's here. It was Cynthia Rogers, unless she's hiding somewhere. And then last we have Fred Pope.
Thank you. Fred Pope, 1501 Navajo Road. It was very interesting earlier this evening to hear, excuse me, Mr. Holman refer to the census and the ways the data can be used. And this has an obvious impact on the reapportionment that is ongoing. From what I'm given to understand, the present proposal by the Reapportionment Committee for redistricting the wards in Norman contains elements of gerrymandering that may be a bit subtle, albeit intentional, for average citizens of Norman in a proclaimed effort to make neater, straight-line boundaries for Norman's wards. It just happens to move the addresses of 2 of Norman's present councilors out of the boundaries for which they were elected. This has the practical and immediate effect of nullifying their election because they would no longer reside in the ward for which they were elected. It is perhaps reasonable to come to the conclusion that these 2 councilors have been redlined, or in this case, straight-lined out of their duly elected positions. Why should this happen when other districts within a given ward could have been used to more equitably distribute population according to the requirements associated with the U.S. Department of Census data? According to the Norman transcript of September 23 of this year, a member of the redistricting committee can be heard saying at a meeting, "We have a person and in brackets, it's in Ward 5, who I don't think is a farmer, but is dangerous in many ways, and so that's to be considered. The mayor has considerable influence and control over the composition of any committee established for the city's concerns. He or she can encourage members of a coterie to volunteer for any given committee, thus practically guaranteeing a previously desired outcome. This certainly appears to be the case in this current proposal. This proposal should be rejected and a new.
Yes, thank you, sir. I believe that's it. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you.